Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be discussing the current state of supports and what I believe to be the current tier list for them. Now, this is just simply my own personal opinion. If you disagree with any of my decisions here or opinions here, by all means, let me know in the description below. I would love to hear any particular reasons why you think so too. I generally want this to become a discussion as to the state of the supports at the moment. So by all means, I would love to hear you guys' input. Just make sure to keep it civil, okay? Don't bash on each other. Anyways, without further ado, we're just gonna jump right straight into it. So, because I have quite a bit of mixed feelings about a good state of the supports. Because right now, it feels like there's really only one, maybe two solid supports at the moment. The rest are either very niche or just aren't good enough to see like the highest state of play at the moment. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and just start off with the S tier Pokemon, just so it provides a little bit more context towards the rest of the Pokemon as well. Okay, so starting off, Hoopa is just straight up S tier. It's just without a doubt, Hoopa is the best support in the entire game. If you want free, easy wins, you just gotta play Hoopa. Okay, now it might take a little bit of getting used to just because Hoopa's abilities are kind of different compared to literally everybody else's in the game. But once you get used to it, Hoopa provides insane value. Literally does Hoopa can literally do all the other supports jobs, but like 20 times better. It's actually kind of crazy. And this is post nerf 2. Even after this last nerf, this like last week or so, where he pretty much just got a damage nerf across the board for basically all his moves and stuff, he is still the best support in the game. And I'll explain why as we get to the other Pokemon, so that way it makes a little bit more sense. Just keep in mind that Hoopa basically does a little bit of everything, which kind of accomplishes all the other supports Pokemon's jobs in a way. So with that being said, let's talk about others so it provides a little bit context for you guys to understand. All right. In terms of raw healing alone, okay, because supports can sometimes be associated with healers. All right. In terms of healing, we really only have like two de facto healers in the game, aside from Hoopa, which is going to be Eldegoss and Blissey. So Eldegoss, I'm putting in the B tier simply because of the fact that Eldegoss still provides an okay amount of healing. And the main reason why he's in B tier and not C tier is simply because he's a range Pokemon. He's, aside from Hoopa, the only other range support Pokemon in the game. And that alone helps Eldegoss stay alive quite frequently. The shields and healing from Cotton Guard are always very nice, especially during the team fights. My only biggest problem with Eldegoss right now is the fact that ever since the new items got introduced into the game, damage output just kind of skyrocketed, where it feels like the healing output from Eldegoss isn't really always good enough to keep up with how team fights progress so rapidly. Damage output gets put out so fast now that it almost feels like Eldegoss can't really keep up with his current healing output. It's just enough to keep someone alive, barely, but if they get chased just even slightly, they basically like Eldegoss can't keep them up all the time. So it's very situational. With that being said, because of the fact that Eldegoss is ranged, he can provide a decent amount of damage output for a support, which helps kind of keep him in the B tier. He's not bad, but he's not like great either. He's just like middle of the pack at the moment. At least that's how I feel like. Now, what I will say is that this is subject to change. It is possible for Eldegoss to maybe get bumped up to like a B plus or like low A tier. Okay, with this new patch, because they did increase the rate that Eldegoss can get her ultimate now, or her Unite move, I should say. And that's where Eldegoss gets some of its best value is from the big, large healing burst that her ultimate provides. So depending on how quickly Eldegoss can get her ultimate off cooldown now, I think that's going to make or break whether or not Eldegoss becomes high B tier or low A tier, in my opinion. But for the most part, aside from the ultimate, Eldegoss is kind of like middle of the pack. in that regard, since we're talking about B tier, I might as well just talk about Mr. Mime. I'm virtually a Mr. Mime 1-trick, or I guess a 2-trick now at this point, because I'm also 2-tricking Hoopa, essentially. For those of you that know me, that have subscribed to the channel ever since basically the game first got launched and stuff, most of you probably know me for my Mr. Mime. Okay, I essentially 1-tricked Mr. Mime all the way from Bronze to Masters with literally just one Pokemon. Lots of people found that very interesting to consider, considering most people flex, play different Pokemon, and I just play one. And most people don't even play supports for that regard. As I feel like I have very credible opinions when it comes to the state of Mr. Mime, especially after this last damage nerf that he received. Honestly, Mr. Mime really struggles right now because there's so much ranged Pokemon in the game. It feels like with every new ranged Pokemon in the game, Mr. Mime gets harder, or not even ranged, just every new DLC Pokemon that gets added to the game. Feels like Mr. Mime's job just gets harder and harder to accomplish, okay, or even just do. Even especially considering like even just the newest Pokemon, Duraludon, okay, his damage output is insane, as well as his range is ridiculous. All right, Mr. Mime can't keep up in a lot of these situations. Even with the damage nerf to Confusion, Confusion is still Mr. Mime's best move. However, because of that damage nerf, it makes it a little bit, just a smidge bit harder for him to keep up with the damage output that all these other Pokemon are dealing to him. Barrier is still his other best move at the moment, and honestly, you're going to be getting, these days with all the ranged Pokemon, you're going to be getting more value from Mr. Mime's Barrier than you are from his Confusion. Simply put, your only real super valuable moves at this point with Mr. Mime are your barriers and your ultimate. Luckily, you get your ultimates super quickly, so you can kind of spam them off cooldown to stun, maybe get some cheeky kills on enemies, or maybe even just to stall, which is kind of Mr. Mime's job, is basically just to stall and disrupt the enemy a little bit, while your teammates kind of like either secure the kills or complete like the objective, like getting Dreadnought or Rotom while you're keeping the enemy busy. Or Zapdos. Those are pretty much your best moves. So it's just the fact that there's just so much against Mr. Mime right now that Mr. Mime is basically in B tier. With that being said, Mr. Mime in a isolated space isn't a bad Pokemon. Mr. Mime is still a pretty good Pokemon. It's just that for some god-awful reason, the devs don't want to touch Mr. Mime in any good form whatsoever. Like, basically, the first time they give Mr. Mime a buff or a nerf, they nerfed him. The only other changes Mr. Mime has ever gotten in the history of the game have been quality of life changes. That is it. And it's a crying shame because honestly, as each new Pokemon progresses and each new patch note comes out, it just gets stacked more and more against Mr. Mime. And it's a crying shame because he's a great, fantastic Pokemon. Tons of fun to play once you start to get him. Sure, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but anyways, I digress, okay? He's middle of the pack right now, just because there's so much against him. It requires a lot more understanding of the play to get more value out of him, to really get him to the higher tiers. But even at the highest tiers, you can't really play him that well, unless you have a team that fully plays around the Mime, which is kind of pushing the limit. You're jumping through a lot of hurdles just to make him work. In the highest setting, I should say. And if it's just your average lobby, if it's like in the lower elos, like maybe like veteran or below, you can easily one-trick Mr. Mime, no problem. Maybe get by with him on Ultra as well, but once you start getting to Masters, you'll start seeing that you start to struggle with them a little bit. With that being said, I'm gonna go talk about Wigglytuff. Okay, Wigglytuff, I think is a solid A tier right now, strictly because of the fact that Wigglytuff is probably the tankiest support in the entire game. It's practically a tank, essentially, all right, has really good CC, and what I would say, aside from Hoopa, of course, Wigglytuff has one of the best passive abilities among all the supports in the game. And that's honestly one of the reasons why so her stats as well as her passive are what help make Wigglytuff one of the in A tier, essentially. She's survivable because she can take a hit easily with all the high damage output that's out right now. Her passive is great for your teammates. Basically luring the enemy towards you to help your teammates get secure kills. She does really good, decent damage still too. I don't know why they nerfed Mr. Mime's damage output when Wigglytuff still deals pretty decent damage too. It's really stupid. Sing is still really strong, especially after they did that shadow nerf to X speed, where X speed no longer stops Sing from putting you to sleep. Now Sing does put you to sleep even with X speed being popped, which is a crying shame in my opinion. So Wigglytuff is a solid pick. Last but not, the only thing that's kind of like, that kind of struggles with Wigglytuff is the fact that she's not ranged. So she'll struggle if like the enemy team's playing like a pure range comp, she might struggle a little bit unless you're running rollout, in which case you could run more of a, like a scoring build where you're just purely trying to score into the enemy's goals and get out quickly. I've done that before, that can work a lot of times, but you kind of have to like see the writing on the wall to make that possible. And with that being said, Blissey I'm putting in C tier. And strictly because of the fact that literally everything that Blissey does, Hoopa just strictly does better, okay? Hoopa is straight up the best healer in the game. With the hyperspace hole, is a hole or dimension or portal or something, whatever it's called. With the hyperspace hole ability that Hoopa has, you essentially have access to quick rotations, okay? Which is absolutely essential once you start getting into the higher ranks. So that way you can kill the Rotom and Dreadnought faster, as well as helps your teammates gank and group up with you to gank on the enemy on the other lane quickly. All right, the portal lets you go back to your base in order to get essentially full health immediately, which is why I'm calling him the best healer in the game. Because even though he doesn't like directly heal you, he might as well be directly healing you because he sends you back to base, which heals you, and sends you right back to the same spot you were in too. He provides great movement across the map through his portals that he creates with his ultimate, which not only does insane damage, makes him super tanky, and has stuns too. Okay, has your entire team teleport to your location, so you can actually go some cracked plays because of it. Even teammates who you're not even talking with, and once you at least start getting into like Ultra and Masters, people will start picking up, or at least be kind of aware of what Hoopa does. And if they see that teleport button on their screen, they'll be like, oh, let's teleport to Hoopa because he probably wants us to go there for a big play. And often more, at least when I play him, more often than not, we end up getting like easy team wipes, and we can destroy an entire goalpost as soon as I do it, as long as you know like when's a good time to do it. And so in terms of healing, Eldegoss, Hoopa literally does the best healing output in the game. So, which kind of makes Eldegoss's job and Blissey's job kind of mute in terms of healing. What about damage? Okay, well, Hoopa also has some of the best damage output in the game, because not only is he the second ranged Pokemon for supports, right? He does more damage than Eldegoss in terms of range. Actually, I think he does more damage than all of them combined. Because he's ranged, he has a good stun on his starting move, the Astonish. Okay, even Shadow Ball, Shadow Ball provides a decent stun as well and does good damage. If you're running Trick Shadow Ball, it does insane damage output. Before the nerf, you were doing literally just as much output as your jungler, essentially. It was kind of crazy. Now, post nerf, even though the damage has been reduced, he's still outputting really good damage outputs, was still akin to like an attacker, which is kind of crazy to think about. Arguably, though, if you want to climb, you want to start using the hyperspace hole because the rotations are just too good, as well as the healing output for your teammates. It's worth noting, too, that your hyperspace hole can be used as an escape tool as well for you and your teammates in case like you're going for a really aggressive push into their second goal post. You can go for those aggressive pushes now safely, knowing that you have the hyperspace hole to teleport you out in case the enemy does meet up and try and contest you at the goal post. Hoopa just provides too much utility and does literally all the other supports jobs basically better. The only thing that he can't do is provide like the crowd control, or the zoning potential that Mr. Mime's barriers does, but because he provides so much value in literally all the other areas, he doesn't really need that. That's basically my tier list in terms of the support Pokemon. I would love to hear your guys' opinions in the comment section down below. I will say that this is kind of a little bit of a mixture of all of both like solo queue and team coordinated play combined. It's not strictly one or the other. This is just kind of my overall combined idea for them. One thing I did forget to mention, by the way, is that for Blissey, the only reason I would pick Blissey at this point in time is if you strongly want the safeguard. If you're not playing Blissey strictly for the safeguard, for the CC immunity, the crowd control immunity aspect that it provides, there's literally no reason to play Blissey right now. Like I said before, Hoopa has better damage output than all of them. Maybe Mr. Mime at most can rival Hoopa, but Hoopa is still better just because he's ranged and can do it from a safer positioning. Has the best healing output across the board. There's no questions about that, and provides insane rotations for your team across the board as well through the hyperspace portal in terms of the goalpost, as well as his ultimate, which can go for big, massive plays. So yeah, that's the only thing I forgot to mention. So without further ado, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comment section down below. Remember to give the video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel. I'm trying to pump out more videos again like I used to. So without further ado, I'll see you guys later. Peace.